welcome to the Monday evening.
Love ball like I do. After Dark's a must listen.
It's where I go to get my hoops fixed.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
All right, welcome in. It is the Field of 68 After Dark on a Tuesday night. Chris Childers with the great Marquette Golden Eagle, Mr. Jerel, McNeal, and the fabulous writer, Mr. C.J. Moore, is with us today. It's a big night. We have the ACC SEC Challenge going on. The SEC has been incredibly dominant. Big 12, Big East happening as well. Not as sexy today, but certainly some big results that we have to talk about, notably with Villanova and Cincinnati. But we had a conference game tonight, gentlemen. We had Michigan and Wisconsin go at it. Dusty May in year number one coming over from Florida Atlantic, brought a little help with him, a couple of big giants in the middle, and those guys, it was like watching Jurassic Park tonight against Wisconsin. They devoured inside like a couple of brontosauruses, got whatever they wanted to. The big guys for Michigan, they win 67-64. Jerel McNeal, I mean, Dusty May was awesome at FAU, and so far Michigan fans have got to be pleased. The last couple of wins for Michigan, statement wins.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think starting off for Coach May, he's done a really good job. Obviously, he's had some guys that he kind of been carried over with him from when he left FAU. And they've been getting the job done early so far, and I'm sure these results early on are probably a little bit better. At least let the fan base know that things are kind of trending in the right direction. But make no mistake about it, tonight wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing game. It was a bit of an ugly game, kind of an old school Big Ten kind of game. But the big guys went to work inside, and Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden had really big games for those guys, and they were able to sustain. But let's be clear, this is a game where neither team eclipsed 40% shooting from the field. Neither team could kind of throw it in the ocean from the 3-point line as well too. So it's kind of a tough, grinded out game, but still. Nonetheless, a big staple win for Dusty May in his first Big Ten game, and obviously against a really good Wisconsin team that was 8-0 coming into the game, with two really good players in Tonge and Blackwell, who have both gotten off to a really hot start. So,
CJ, that's a tough place to play. I mean, I know it wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing game. I know it was kind of an ugly game, but to go on the road and find a way to win that for Dusty May, his first game in the Big Ten against a really good Wisconsin team that we all think is going to be a contender at the top of the Big Ten. I mean, CJ, that to me, you go to the Kohl Center and win early. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I thought it was a ugly game in the first half, but down the stretch, that second half, it got really, really fun to watch. And that is such a huge win for Michigan. We might be watching tonight two teams that will contend for a Big Ten title. Like I don't think that anyone saw Wisconsin being that team coming into the season. I know at the Athletic we had them way down in the Big Ten rankings. Nobody saw John Tonje coming and being what he's been so far. He's probably been an All-American level player so far. But tonight, this was all about Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden. Wisconsin could not guard their 4-5 ball screen. Danny Wolf just put on a show, and Dusty May said it afterwards that they were kind of getting each other's way early on, struggling to figure out where to be and how to play off each other. But the last two games, I don't think there's a front court in college basketball that's playing better, and they were terrific. And Danny Wolf just put on an absolute show. Like he was doing everything both on the offensive and defensive end for Michigan and setting up Vlad. And their guard play wasn't terrific, but those two carried the load, and they were awesome.
They were awesome inside. And Wolf, like you said, 7 of 11 from the field, highly efficient, 5 assists, 5 blocks, 20 points, did a little bit of everything. Vladislav Golden, the FAU transfer, had 24 points tonight. He had 3 blocks as well, 5 rebounds, was 9 of 16 from the field. The big guys did what they had to do. The guards struggled. Trey Donaldson was 0 of 7 from the field. Roddy Gale was 3 of 6. Namari Burnett, 2 of 7, but they overcame that. The big guys are going to be what wins some games. It's going to give them an advantage this year inside the Big Ten. When you look, Jerel, at this Michigan team, now that we have an 8-game sample size, for CJ, when you look at the last couple of games and the way things are set up right now in the Big Ten, and the fact that, Michigan's guard play isn't great, but they do have that advantage, just, pure height, size, rebounding, second chance opportunities. Where do you think the guard play will end up? I mean, we know that the big guys are always going to be big. They're going to come into a gym. They're always going to be big. Where do you think they end up, though, the guard play? Will they be a well-rounded team eventually?
Yeah, I think it'll come around. Roddy Gale's a guy that when you catch him on certain nights, you think he's a really, really, high caliber Big Ten level guard. That he had his moments at Ohio State. He's had his moments early on this season. He made some good, strong plays down the stretch, and I think tonight was a night where those guards realized, okay, they can't guard our bigs, and we're not going to try to do something that we can't and try to take away from those guys. And they just kind of got out of the way and let them take over. But Namari Burnett was pretty solid in this game, hit a really big 3 late, and he had some great defensive plays. I think Roddy and Trey are good enough if Danny Wolf and Vlad are going to play like this. That LJ Casson was playing in his first Big Ten road game. He's had a freshman that's had some moments this year. Reuben Jones wasn't great tonight, but he's a guy that's been around college basketball forever, had success at North Texas. So I think they've got a good core of guards. Like, they're not stars, but this team's going to go through its bigs, and I really like how it's put together. And their defense is terrific. Like, Wisconsin's a team that's been scoring the ball at a pretty high level so far. And I know Tanjay still got 18 tonight, but he had to work for him. They didn't get to the line as often as they've gotten in some of these other big games. So I think Michigan's defense is terrific as well. And I think this is a team that got a chance to win a very wide open Big Ten.
Jerel, I'm curious from your side of things, as a guy who played at such a high level and had a great career at Marquette, playing a conference game this early, December 3rd, and kind of learning what you're about on the road. What is I don't want to oversell it, but I got to believe for Dusty May, as he's trying to figure out what he has, that's a pretty valuable thing tonight, that this team was able to do that on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of spoke to it earlier. It's not a whole lot of environments that you're gonna go in besides the Kohl Center, that's where it's gonna get too much tougher than that. It's a really tough place to play. Traditionally, Wisconsin wins a lot of games there. They do really well at home. So if nothing else, this should kind of catapult them going forward throughout the rest of the season, especially during conference play, just to get those guys the confidence. Obviously, it's been a lot of turnover with him bringing some old guys and whatever else he can get in out of the portal back. But with a team that's kind of young and kind of just still gelling this early on, it's going to be important for them to have that confidence to know that they can get out here and go on the road and beat a really good team, a nationally ranked team. So I'm looking forward to seeing how things pan out for Michigan over the next couple of weeks and throughout conference play, because they should be interesting. And just sort of like CJ said as well too, the Big Ten should be pretty wide open. So they got as good a shot as anybody.
Well, that was a fun way to open things up tonight inside the Big Ten. We also, the marquee event going on the next couple of days, the SEC ACC Men's Basketball Challenge. Right now, Clemson, Kentucky locked in a tight game in Clemson, South Carolina. We'll continue to monitor that one. That's kind of the one that could rock the boat because the SEC has been dominant across the board. Oklahoma beating Georgia Tech. We saw Texas A&M over Wake. On and on it went. Let's talk about Ole Miss, though. They took on Pat Kelsey and Louisville. And again, you talk about the front court. Ole Miss completely dominant in this game. They beat Louisville up inside, outscored the Cardinals 48-26 inside the paint. So it was pretty obvious. Second chance opportunities, beating them up against the rim. Louisville didn't have an answer to that. CJ, for Pat Kelsey, if you look at the losing side of it, they got dominated tonight. He took over a program that was a mess. So obviously for him, there is a long way to go with the Cardinal program.
Yeah, and they're a team that's really banged up right now. I mean, I think they're at 8 scholarship players. Losing Kayshawn Pryor, who I thought was their most talented player for the year, was a huge loss. And I think they're going to be a team that's a little bit all over the map because they shoot so many threes. There's going to be a lot of variance in their results. Tonight, 5 of 30 weren't hitting. And Mississippi's like, Ole Miss is good. That's a team that almost beat Purdue this weekend. I know BYU didn't look great tonight, but beat a really good BYU team. And, Ole Miss scored the ball really well tonight, and the defense showed up. Defensively, they've been a little bit behind. But with Mark Adams rejoining Chris Beard's staff, he has had such great defenses through the years. I expect that end of the floor is going to catch up for Ole Miss. And this is a team that, I got to catch for the first time this weekend. I hadn't watched them live yet. And they're pretty good. Like they don't maybe have a star name that pops, but Jalen Murray, Sean Padola, Matthew Morrell, Dre Davis, like those are some good old college basketball players. And they've been impressive so far.
Yeah, we saw from Dre Davis tonight, Jerel. I mean, he was 9-12 from the field and 20 points. I mean, he put on quite a show.
Yeah, he did. And Dre Davis was great tonight. Purdue got it going early on. When a few of the other guys kind of got off to a slow start offensively, but you guys just kind of spoke to it. I think still with this Ole Miss team, their identity is just going to be built on the defensive side of the ball. It's kind of like, kind of how their coaching staff is wired. So, and I think we got a little bit of a look at that tonight. Obviously with Louisville being shorthanded and the major injury to Pryor just passing by. It's gonna be tough sledding for them going forward. But Ole Miss just kind of wore them down tonight. They made everything tough on them. They made it hard to get into a lot of their sets, and just kind of heated up the ball and made things tough on Hepburn tonight. Even though he still had a pretty solid game, but it's gonna be a situation pretty much with Ole Miss. As long as they're able to play together, guys are able to make shots and they're able to manufacture enough points, they're going to be a good team going forward, and that's going to be a team to look out for.
I forget who it was we were talking earlier during the season, but it might have been Doster that was in love with Ole Miss when it came to the Final Four. Certainly they were dominant today. What is their long-term prognosis? I mean, I've heard people say that this team can get to the final weekend. Certainly matchups, all that play into it. And I don't know if I'm ready to go there yet, but CJ, when you look at this Ole Miss team, you just saw them. So you saw them in person. What do they look like to you when it comes to a long-term outlook?
Oh, sorry. I saw them on television. I hadn't watched them live yet. I wasn't in San Diego.
Yeah.
I was in Vegas.
What do you think?
But no, they're a good team. I think one thing they're missing defensively is a rim protector. And I think in the no middle defense, when Chris Beard's had his best defensive teams, he's had a really, really good rim protector sitting behind those guys. They used to take a bunch of charges. Don't do that anymore because nobody does in college basketball. But that's maybe the one thing this team's missing, why the defense hasn't gotten off to a dominant start. But I think it's like a really good, solid upper tier, like upper middle pack of the middle of the pack SEC team. I mean, the SEC is just loaded. So, if this is a team that can finish in the top 6 or 7, you're going to end up with a decent seed and could make a run. I think maybe second weekend, if they made the Final Four, I'd be a little bit surprised, but they've got enough talent to do that. I mean, it's a team that could definitely go on a run. There, Jalen Murray, he can skate. Like he can really, really fly up and down the floor. Dre Davis is a tough matchup. So they've got old dudes. I could see them going on a run, but I'm not quite ready to go Final Four just yet.
Jerel, I think what the thing CJ said that really kind of popped to me that we're watching tonight, because the SEC is beating the hell out of the ACC, which is, I mean, think about that. 5 years ago, we say that they would have been 10-0 on night one. You're nuts. Put down the booze, whatever. But that's what we're looking at right now. Complete and utter domination across the board from the SEC over the ACC. And that's, I think, what's going to be weird as the regular season plays out. I mean, as good as Ole Miss looked, it's going to be weird, I got to think, night in and night out as this thing plays out as we move forward and get into conference play in the southeastern part of the country.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys kind of already spoke to it, but I think it's going to be a absolute mosh pit in the SEC this year. So I'm definitely not ready to write them in to saying they're a team that can make it to the final weekend just yet. I think they're good. They do probably have enough talent, but it's going to take a number of things kind of cutting their way. It's going to start with them finishing high enough in the SEC to get a favorable draw in the tournament would be the first thing. But I think overall in the total schematic, I think they're a team that can for sure get to the second weekend. I'm pretty confident in that. But at the same time, this is a team, like I said, with this conference, they can get really beat up along the way. And, not to say that it's going to happen to them, but, right now where they sit, they don't have a sure thing in hand necessarily. They have a couple good quality wins, nothing that's just staggering just yet. So they're gonna have the opportunities in conference, but at the same time, things could go the other way too. So because it's gonna be a tough league, man, and every night, especially during the road games and things like that, you're gonna have to bring your hard hat in the SEC. So we'll see how things shake out. But I think overall, in totality, it's a team that can make it to the second weekend for sure. But it's gonna be really important that they get off to a strong start in conference play and stack some good quality wins early.
Yeah, it's really quite amazing what's going on right now in that league. Let's take a break, come back. We'll talk more about the SEC ACC Challenge right around the corner. It is the Field of 68 After Dark.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today.
All right, we're back here, Field of 68 After Dark. Chris Childers with CJ Moore and the fabulous Jerel McNeal of Marquette fame. Loved watching him play for the Golden Eagles. It has been a really fun night so far of college basketball. I love anytime you have these non-conference opportunities. You got the SEC ACC games going on. We have the Big East and the Big 12 going on. And certainly when it comes to March, the committee's going to look at these, and they're going to be important data points when it comes to seeding in the bubble and all that. So certainly valuable moments that we're watching play out early in the season. One of the games that really kind of popped early just from a wow perspective, a beatdown perspective, was Tennessee. The Vols now 8-0 on the season. They whip up on Syracuse. 96-70 was the final, and I wrote it down. They, much like the other game we just talked about with Ole Miss and Louisville, they dominated in the paint against the Orange. They outscored Syracuse 44-28 inside the charity stripe. So they did their damage inside. They shot the ball well. They played good defensively, and This is a program that hasn't been to the Final Four. They've been close. This past year, they got to the Elite Eight. Bruce Pearl had them within, I think, an eyelash against Ohio State in the Elite Eight not too long back. So they've been close. Do they have that team? Time will tell. But Jerel, they look damn good tonight. And Chaz Lanier continues to prove that he is a top-line star in the SEC.
Yeah, absolutely, and they look great again tonight. And it's almost as if they didn't miss a beat. You would find it hard to believe coming out of this, after the year that somebody like Dalton Connect had for them last year, that they just, that they picked up and kept rolling with the same type of steam. So you got to give credit to those guys for that, their coaching staff, and also what they did just with adding pieces to the roster that they have this year. But they also got a few holdover guys, and that always helps as well too, just having that familiarity. But man, they're going to be a tough defensive team. They're going to guard. They're going to get after you on the defensive end, and like you said, Lanier has been phenomenal. Clearly one of the best shooters in college basketball, and when he gets it going, he can change the temperature of a game really fast. Along with a steady point guard who's been around for some years now, Ziegler, and they got some other pieces as well too, man. And obviously Syracuse was coming off. They were already off to a tough start coming into the game with Starling being out of the game. So Tennessee didn't give them a whole lot of hope though. They kind of just came in, imposed their will right from the get go, and just laid on Syracuse, and there wasn't a whole lot that they could do, and they couldn't stop them defensively, and then they were having a hard time scoring without their number one guy too, and their main playmaker. So
CJ, we've seen Tennessee kind of do that this year. We saw them do that to Virginia, where they shut them down. Louisville, I know that Louisville team's in a transitional mode, shut them down, played really well against Baylor at home. We think highly of them tonight. I mean, I get they haven't played the cream of the crop, but it hasn't been a patty cake schedule. I mean, they've played decent teams, and they've just looked incredible, CJ.
Yeah, I think their closest game yet is a 15-point win against Baylor, and that's what you want to see from a top line dominant team. I think I'm not sure what they are ranking wise in the AP poll right now, but it's probably too low. Like this is a dominant defensive team. Rick Barnes, year in and year out, just builds dominant defenses. And how about 2 years in a row just going out in the portal and finding a dude on a losing team that didn't do that well at a mid-major team, and plucking them away and turning them into an absolute star. And that last year was Dalton Connect. This year, Chaz Lanier, coming from North Florida. He's been awesome so far. So good solid win. Like Syracuse is meh, especially without their star. But do what you have to do. And Rick Barnes done an excellent job with this group. And they've looked like one of them. I think them and Auburn have probably looked like the most dominant team so far. Obviously you want to see it against like a high level team. Baylor's top 25-ish, probably near the bottom of the top 25, but got Illinois coming up soon. That'll be one to watch. And I think we'll be looking at Tennessee could end up being like the last undefeated team, because I don't think the first chance they probably really have to lose is when they go to Florida January 7th.
It's looking pretty good, Jerel, for them to be in that position to continue to pile up wins. Now, the Illinois game could be tough here, and I think they have a game in between that. They play I forget who it is, but they got Miami. Yeah, they got Miami coming up.
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But Illinois will certainly be a bigger test, and that game's on the road, away from home. But the team just looks lathered. They looked good, and the schedule looks kind of favorable. For Tennessee fans, they just don't want to get too excited. They have been dying to get to a Final Four, and they've been damn close, Jerel. So, this is a team. I've said it before, but I kind of believe that this could be their year.
Yeah, it's a possibility, and sort of like what CJ just said. They've looked like early on just one of the more dominant teams in throughout the country. So they're rolling right now. Like you said, they haven't necessarily took down any world beaters. I do think that Illinois game would be really telling. It'll definitely, if nothing else, test their defense. So, obviously we talked about how that's always the strength of the Rick Barnes teams. Those guys are going to get after you in guard. Where Illinois has a ton of guys who can really fill it up. They spread the hell out of the floor now. They've kind of turned over their whole roster. So I think that'll be a good test, and also something that'll be, an actual road game as well. So, but right now they're riding high, and they're in a really good spot. So for the most part, as long as they take care of business, and they get off to a hot start and everything in conference play, I think they'll have a chance here in the next couple of months where they'll probably be looking at a 1 seed.
CJ, I'm curious, man. How like Rick Barnes? That was a guy when he was at the end of Texas that people said he can't recruit anymore, and he's refusing to do the AAU thing, and then he gets the Tennessee job, and we're a long ways removed from that press conference when he got introduced as the coach, and hey, he's had incredible success since. And now we're in this transfer portal era, and he's getting guys to buy in and play pretty damn incredible high energy defense that weren't recruited out of a high school living room with mom and dad buying into what Rick Barnes was going to do for him. How is he doing this? How is he getting the right guys to come in to buy into what he likes to do, especially on defense?
I think they've really been really smart in how they recruit. I think Rick has long been one of the more coaches that catches a lot of unnecessary flack. I remember years and years ago when I was writing at Basketball Prospectus, back when that was a website, I did a story about how, the sports guy Bill Simmons used to give, when Kevin Durant was there, would give Rick Barnes all kinds of crap, like saying he couldn't coach, yada, yada, yada. And did a piece back then about like get off Rick Barnes. Like, this dude is one of the best coaches in college basketball. I thought, Texas probably should have held on to him and given him a little bit of time to kind of he hit a little bit of a funk there the last few years and when he was at Texas, but they were still going to NCAA tournaments. They were still pretty good teams. One thing that's been huge at Tennessee is they have one of the best strength coaches in the country. And, if you look at them every single year, like Chaz Lanier, even go pull up tape of him last year at North Florida and pull up tape of what he looks like now. Like, that dude is jacked. And he wasn't looking like that a year ago. I think they do a really, really good job with their strength program. And that kind of shows up on the defensive end. Like, you just don't get through those dudes. They basically build a wall every night and make it really, really tough to get to the paint. So he's just built a great program. They've recruited, they've landed the right guys. They've been smart in who they go after, and always have enough guys that stick around long enough to where they can carry the culture over year to year. And I just think he's one of the more underrated coaches in the country just because he hasn't won a national title. It's maybe been a minute since he's been to a Final Four, but you keep getting teams that are good enough to get there. Eventually you'll break through the tournaments. The tournament is the tournament. Like, you never know what's going to happen, but he's had teams that have been good enough to get there.
I think that's interesting. Great win for Tennessee, certainly, and glad to know they have a strength coach to getting those guys all big and burly and physical.
He's one of the best, man. He's one of the best.
Yeah, and that certainly it matters. We'll take a break, come back. Kentucky, Clemson, down to the wire. We'll recap it next right here on the Field of 68 After Dark.
Now that college basketball season is back in full swing, I need to remind you guys about our partners over at Autograph, where the real college hoops fans reside. The Autograph app curates all of the best content for every sports fan and every sports fan's favorite team. Podcasts, blogs, analysis. It's all there without the nonsense from the talking heads that don't actually watch the games. And there's a bonus. Consuming content on the Autograph app earns you coins that can be redeemed for rewards for things like no-fee tickets or signed jerseys from your favorite players. There are a couple new features in the app that I need to let you guys know about as well. Autograph Replay gives you a quick-hitting summary of the previous day's news so you can keep track of all the important things going on with your favorite teams. And Autograph Rooms allows you to chat in real time with the true voices of fandom within your team's community. So go to the link in the description or scan that QR code on your screen and download the Autograph app.
All right, we're back here, Field of 68 after dark on this Tuesday. Chris Childers with Jerel McNeal and CJ Moore recapping the night of action in college basketball. It's been a pretty exciting night with the SEC, ACC Men's Challenge going on. We've also had the Big 12 and the Big East battle happening as well, with a big upset going on in that game, or in that battle, in that series of games, with Villanova beating Cincinnati. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the show, but big result just happened. The SEC had been dominating all night long. They had won every game in the SEC, ACC Men's Challenge until they didn't. Clemson knocks off Kentucky. How ironic that it's Kentucky, the blue blood of blue bloods from the league. That's the one that goes down, and they go down to Clemson, that historically isn't exactly the greatest blue blood in the ACC. They're certainly not North Carolina or Duke, but that's not lost on me, that irony. But Clemson beats Kentucky 70-66. Jerel McNeal, a massive, massive statement win for Clemson tonight at home.
Yep, and the ACC needed it, so it was right on time for them. I think this got to be the last game that's going to be played tonight in the challenge. So and they were getting swept until then. So obviously a really big win for Clemson. They've been the team where they haven't had a lot of early tests on throughout the season, but they showed up tonight and they got a home game against a really good Kentucky team. Just speaking on that as well too, I think it's not your traditional Kentucky team that you always look at here. I think they're doing it a little bit of a different way, with Coach Pope and everything being in, even with the talent level and stuff. And this was just it was a well played, tough fought game by both teams, and neither team just killed it tonight offensively. They were battling. I think Kentucky's length bothered Clemson, and I think it went the other way as well with Kentucky. Their size inside on Clemson kind of bothered some of those guys. A lot of rebounds, a lot of second chance, a lot of fouls, that type of game. It was just a muddy game, but really well played, and both teams really competed hard. But Clemson made more plays down the stretch to be able to come away with this win. And Kentucky will be fine; they'll bounce back. But just one of the only things that continues just to keep me hung up on Kentucky is a little bit is just they got all the right pieces, all the guys in the right spots. But I still think they kind of lack a guy that can kind of create and go get his own shot at the end of games, or when plays and things like that break down. That last 9 to 7 seconds of that shot clock, okay, well, we ain't got nothing, we got to go. A lot of teams is some kind of ball screen or a guy that's really good in pick and rolls. Other teams is a guy that could just get to his spots and maybe generate an open look for himself, or draw two to kick to somebody else. I still think they're going to kind of miss that this year, and it's going to be hard, specifically to win on the road when you don't have guys like that. You need a guy that's a run stopper that can stop the bleeding, that can get to the free throw line, or that can just draw two consistently by getting paint touches or making people double team them. And tonight they kind of had a rough time with that, but it was a really well fought game by both teams, and actually a fun one to watch here as we just finished up.
CJ, can they find that guy? Is that guy on the roster, or is it just Kentucky's limited?
I think it's Lamont Butler, but he's not like the most dynamic breakdown guy. But he is somebody he's done a good job getting into the paint so far, especially in transition. In that Duke game, he was really good. I think that Mark Pope is a good enough offensive coach for them to kind of figure it out night in and night out, and they've got such good 3-point shooting that it spreads the floor and open up those double gaps and stuff for guys like Lamont Butler. Otiga always the other guy that can get downhill a little bit. But I think Jerel's right. They don't have the usual they don't have the pros that we're used to seeing at Kentucky, but it is just a really good, experienced, I think, smart team that kind of knows who they are. And there's no shame in going to Clemson and losing that game. Jerel, I'll throw it back to you. Like, how hard is it, remembering from your career, first big road game this is the first time Kentucky's gone on the road this year. First true road game. How tough was that every single year? It seems like a lot of high majors, no matter, even if you're favored or not, and I'm pretty sure Clemson was probably favored in this game. I know they were by, I think, a point at Ken Palm. I'm guessing Vegas followed along. But how tough is that to go on the road for the first time every season?
It's always hard, CJ. It's always hard, especially for that first one when you're playing other, high level schools, high major level schools, and you going into their gym for the first time. Long as if it isn't like on Christmas break or anything, and students and everything are on campus, you're always going to usually get a pretty electric environment, especially if you're on a good team. But I just remember throughout my college years, like we lost to some teams on the road where it was just like, you getting that moment is just like a bad dream. Like, this team isn't necessarily really good. They're just making more plays than us right now. It's super loud in this gym. Every time we miss a shot or make a mistake, it feels like you running uphill. Road games are tough in college, and that's also one of the things that makes college basketball great. Is just the environments and the fans, and really you have that unpredictability where going in on the road into another team's gym, guys are going to be fighting and competing, especially when you got a number attached to your name and you kind of got a target on your back. So it's always going to be tough year in, year out. But it's also one of the funnest things you can do in college basketball is trying to go on the road and win too.
All right, so Clemson beats Kentucky 70-66, and I think road games are certainly one thing, and they're big and they feel big. I think in this case, though, it's a non-conference challenge. We've made a big deal about it. We've talked about the ACC getting dominated by the SEC. It was, sacrilegious to think that was possible as recently as 5 years ago, and now things have completely tipped. I mean, it wasn't that long ago when the SEC was a 3-bid league, and things have completely shifted, and I think we've certainly made a big deal of that. So I wonder, Kentucky's that team that ruined it, right? They didn't go undefeated in the league tonight because Kentucky lost. I just wonder, like, Jerel, from a player's perspective, do you get up more for these road games? When you're playing a non-conference team and it's one of these challenges, do you care more as a player?
Yeah, absolutely. And you have pride first and foremost in the school that you're at, but also in your conference. And I know when we were in school, it was the Big East, but it was the 16-team Big East. So, and I think back then we started doing the challenge. I think we matched up with the SEC at one point for our challenge too early on, but this was obviously years ago. But you take pride in that. You don't want to be the team that lets that lets your conference down. You want to try to hold serve, as they would say, and obviously it gets the competitive juices flowing a little bit more when you get opportunity. When you like all the games are on TV, you get a chance to watch all the other teams and how they're faring before or after your games too. And you definitely better know that those guys are keeping count as well too, and keeping track, just to try to see, not only who's the better team, but which league is better. But I think these are really fun matchups as well too when we get these conference versus conference, whether it's Big East versus the Big 12 or ACC versus the SEC. However, any way you do it, you're always going to get some really good matchups out of it. And the fact that they're doing true road games, with these matchups too, just gives it an even better feel. You're able to kind of tie in some of your fan bases, and we get some really cool matchups early in the year, or right when we're getting into the conference season, that we wouldn't usually get.
Chris Childers, CJ Moore, Jerel McNeal. Kentucky goes down at the hands of Clemson tonight in the SEC ACC Challenge. CJ, I'm curious, when you look at the value of this game for Clemson and this win, is there an overreaction to be had? The ACC, as evidenced by tonight's results, kind of stinks. Duke's lost a couple of times, and one of them is to Kentucky, who, Clemson beat tonight. North Carolina's gotten beat a few times. We'll see what they do tomorrow against Alabama. Can we look at Clemson and possibly think they're the league's best team?
Oh, no. let's not go too crazy. But I mean, I
How
think
far
it's
can we
we could.
overreact on them?
Yeah, I mean, I think Clemson, like Brad Brownell does a good job. I mean, let's remember that Clemson was in the Sweet 16 last year. Bring back some guys off that team. Ian Shefflin was, he couldn't make a shot tonight, but he still finishes with 11 points, 20 rebounds, and 4 assists. Like, he made his impact. Dylan Hunter's back. Like, they've got some good experienced dudes. I think Duke is still the class of this league. I think if there's a challenger at this point, it would be Pitt to me. I think Pitt's been the second most impressive team in the ACC so far. Jalen Lowe is terrific point guard, one of the best point guards in the country. So I would, like, if you want me to overreact and say there's a team that can challenge Duke, and I think Pitt would be the one right now. But I think what the ACC has to be concerned about is if you get crushed in this and your non-conference has already been pretty lousy, like Miami's losing to multiple mid-majors, obviously lost tonight to Arkansas. It's been a really, really bad couple of weeks for the ACC, and what you have to worry about, similar to the Big East a year ago, is that you're not going to get very many bids, because when you get the wins in the ACC, your computer numbers are going to be so bad because of how poorly you did in the non-conference that there's not going to be very many opportunities to get resume building wins. So I think this is where the ACC has to be worried is, you could have a team that has a really good conference record. I think Wake Forest was 1v1 last year that had a pretty good, conference record and still wasn't able to make the NCAA tournament. So that would be my concern for the ACC right now. That would be maybe my overreaction would be, is this like a 3-bid league? Is this maybe a 3-4 bid league? That'd be my overreaction. But I don't think that I think Clemson could be a top 3 or 4 team in the league. But if they were winning the ACC title, then Brad Brownell is probably in the Coach of the Year conversation, because that would be a heck of a job.
It would be a heck of a job. Jerel, where are you after they beat Kentucky tonight? Are you willing to overreact on Clemson or not?
I wouldn't say on Clemson, but I will say this. I'll go out on a limb and say that I think that we are starting to see a bit of a shift here. Just the powers to be as far as, basketball conferences. And we talked about this a little bit, in the earlier segment, or it might have actually even been on break before we got started. But, we're seeing more and more of these high profile coaches go toward the SEC conference and kind of, build programs that are sustainable and real powerhouse college basketball programs. And they doing all of that under the umbrella of all of these SEC schools, which are technically supposed to be considered football schools. So it gives you a little bit of some stock to fall back on with that. You're not necessarily always the main attraction, not as much media press and buzz, especially when football season is still going on if they're any good. But we've seen Bruce Pearl do it. Coach Cal headed down that way. Nate Oates has completely revamped the Alabama team. So it'll be interesting just to see who's going to be next, man. But I do think we're seeing a shift in the ACC. It's going on a couple years now, and this is supposed to be at one point or another the premier basketball conference in the country, and they haven't looked good going on at least 2 years, or probably more. They're probably say top to bottom. It just hasn't been a great league through and through how it usually is. So they're top heavy right now.
Well, great win for Clemson, 70-66. They have won their last 4 games against AP top 5 teams, all while the Tigers unranked. That's pretty incredible. They're the third team to do so, and the first is UTEP did it from 85 through 92. Wow. So, yeah, kind of amazing to see what Brad Brownell's program got accomplished tonight against a top 5 Kentucky team. For me, when you look at where we're at, and you're talking about the SEC, and this is exactly what their commissioner, Greg Sankey, wanted. After they had that 3-bid year when I think Vanderbilt was in the play-in game in Dayton, he said, enough of this. We're the SEC. We have more money than anybody. We're making so much money off of our own network, the SEC network. We got to stop this. So let's go out there, hire those guys you mentioned, and let's start scheduling people. Look at where they're at. It's kind of that, to me, CJ, it's that for Greg Sankey, and he made sure, because look at the state of Alabama. I mean, there was a time they didn't give a damn about basketball. Now it's ingrained in the culture. And this is exactly what he saw. He said, we are too plentiful to not be good at a sport that makes money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, like you said, my buddy Kyle Tucker wrote about it last year. They prioritize hiring really good basketball coaches, and it's a different landscape than it used to be. I mean, NIL really, really matters, and nobody's got more NIL than the SEC. So they have all of the advantages now, and I think who your coach is one of the, NIL's up there, and who your coach is what's really important in college basketball. And then having good home arenas. And how do you end up having good home arenas? You got to win so people will actually come and watch your games. And like you said, people in Alabama care now. So I think the league's done a really good job of going out and hiring the right guys, and then, having the money to back those dudes and let them go out and get players. And I think the SEC clearly this year, coming into the season, the Big 12 had 5 of the preseason top 10, but the SEC is clearly the best league in college basketball this season. I think the Big 12 is still really, really good, but I think the SEC has shown that's going to be the best league in the country. And bad start for the Big 12 tonight against the Big East. I mean, Cincinnati was a team that I was high on and had a fairly high rank this week. I think, way up in KenPom. And that's a game that going to Nova, you would think if they're legit top 15-ish team, they would be able to win. And so bad start for the Big 12. BYU got smoked against Providence. I think the SEC is clearly the best basketball league this season.
So Kentucky is up next for Gonzaga, so no rest for the weary, and they get them coming up at the end of the week, over the weekend. So that's going to be an interesting game to see how Kentucky and the Pope bounce back against Mark Few and the Zags. We'll take a break, come back. We'll get into the Big 12 Big East battle right around the corner, including Villanova's big win over Cincinnati. We'll break it down next. Chris Childers with CJ Moore and Jerel McNeal on the Field of 68 After Dark.
Now that the college basketball season is in full swing, you need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rhythm app. Spelled RITHMM, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against-the-spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rhythm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in the Rhythm's metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rhythm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download at the link in the description.
All right, back here, Field of 68 After Dark, final segment of the evening. Been a fun night. We had a great night of basketball with the SEC and the ACC, the SEC flexing. Greg Sankey having himself a day. He got Alabama in the college football playoff, little controversy there. And then in basketball, stuck it to the ACC again because Miami was the team left out of the football thing, and then stuck it to the ACC and Jim Phillips.
No football.
Again. Hey, mentioning how it all parlays together for the pain of Jim Phillips and the ACC. But the Big 12 Big East challenge, or the battle, if you will, was tonight as well. And Villanova Cincinnati was the game I certainly didn't expect to be that competitive, albeit the game in Philadelphia. And Villanova won 68-60. Eric Dixon pouring in 31 points tonight in the win for the Wildcats. The Wildcats used to be a feared program. They're not that anymore, but CJ got themselves a big W tonight against Cincinnati.
Yeah, really impressive game. And if you tuned in and like you didn't know Villanova was 4-4 and has just some awful losses on the resume, you'd be like, oh, okay, normal Villanova, really guards, shoots it pretty well. Eric Dixon is a load to guard. Like that dude, when he starts backing you down and no help comes, and you're on an island with him, that is not a fun place to be. He was terrific. Jameer Breakus was really good. Really good win for Villanova. Cincinnati, I know hadn't played anybody yet, but their computer numbers were really good so far. Obviously, there's another instance though of going on the road against a high major for the first time. You lose, so it's not ready to write off Cincinnati yet. They really could not make a shot tonight and struggled offensively, where their offense has been pretty good so far. So, but this was a huge win for Cal Neptune. Like he needed something positive to happen, and I still think they have like enough talent to maybe turn this around and be a team that competes middle of the pack, at least in the Big East. But he probably needs to make an NCAA tournament, so they got to get a bunch more of these this season. But it was a good start. Wooga Poplar had some moments. He hadn't been off to the best start, but good game for him. And like I said, Eric Dixon, like that dude is one of the hardest guys to guard in the country, and they're going to have a chance, kind of like Rutgers. Like Rutgers always has a chance because of the two young pros. Villanova should have a chance in a lot of games if when they're able to get Eric Dixon the ball in good spots.
Jerel, real or fool's gold win for Villanova? Can they build off it?
I'm going to say that they have a pulse. They have a heartbeat. Villanova has a heartbeat, ladies and gentlemen. But CJ kind of hit it on the head. It wasn't the prettiest game. Cincinnati was right around that 7 to 8 point margin all game long. They fought hard, but at the end of the day, their two best players, Jizzle James and I think it's Lukosius is how you pronounce it. They both were really off. They had bad shooting night. Jizzle James was 8 for 18. Lukosius was 4 for 14 or something like that. They just didn't really shoot the ball particularly well tonight. Now the question is how much of that had to do with Villanova's defense, which I do think some of it did, not necessarily all of it. But at the end of the day, they have a pulse. If it was going to happen, it needed to happen now. They got a big win before getting to conference play. So like I said, they have a heartbeat. But on the flip side of that, I have zero confidence that they're going to turn this thing around. And it's primarily that I watched the game. I watched probably too much of the game. Eric Dixon can't go for 40 every night. That can't be their recipe, for winning ball games. I don't see the point total getting to where it needs to get for them to win enough games to be relevant this year, because he's going to have to go for 40. And tonight he played out of his mind. I seen him. I seen the big fella do a fade off a pin down and a hard rip through to a one dribble pull up three, and I'm just like, man, this is crazy. But he really had it going tonight, man. He's a hell of a player. He's one of the best we have in the college game that's still left. And obviously, he's been around for a while, but I don't think that's sustainable going forward, night in, night out. And they're just not getting enough offensive production from some of those other guys. Brickus was good. He tends to heat up and then kind of just disappear a little bit. Like he got it going first half and then really was a no-show a bit in the second half. So, but at the end of the day, I will say I'm happy for Neptune, man. My God, things have been hot for him, obviously, with some really bad losses, and I'm sure he hasn't had a whole lot of good days. So, I'm happy for him, man. Throw a little bit of water, put some ice on his head or something, man. Cool things down a little bit. It always helps to get a big win, and obviously, happy for the conference, the Big East. They're battling back, so we kind of been taking our lumps too. In the non-conference play here, so we got a chance to make some noise here against the Big 12, what was supposed to be, if not the best compared to the SEC. I would say probably everybody's considered to be the best or the second best league as far as basketball is concerned this year.
And some more opportunities for the Big 12 coming tomorrow and the Big East to make a statement. It's just been a disaster with Kyle Neptune, and I'm glad to, at least for tonight. At least for tonight. He gets to smile and rest easy a little bit. BYU Providence tonight, that game, home game for the Friars, and they dominate over BYU. 83-64 was the final score. Looked pretty damn convincing in the process. They shot 60% from the field as opposed to BYU's 33%. They hit 12 threes in the process, or 54% from the outside. Did a little bit of everything well tonight. Providence did against BYU. Another big win for the Big East. CJ, your thoughts on Providence over the Cougs?
Well, first of all, I'd like to issue a public apology to Yegor Dimon. He suffered the athletic curse today, I guess, kind of like, there was the SI cover curse back in the day. I had a story come out on Yegor today, and then my dude went out and went 0 for 10 from the field, had just, I think, a season low 2 assists. Not a great night for him, not a great night for the Cougs. They're a team that really needs, is going to rely on their offense this season, and I think defensively is probably going to be their weakness, and Providence put them on them today, and good for Providence getting Bryce Hopkins back. 16 points in his first game of the season. That's a huge gain for Providence. Not too often you can add like a borderline All-American caliber guy and a month into the season, and then he comes right out and throws up 16 points. So I think this was a big win for Providence after going to battle for Atlantis and losing all 3 games there. They Kim English really needed this one, and good win for Providence. Another home team winning, kind of a common thread tonight, but this is one that Providence really needed, I think, to get some positive momentum going in. And they play Rhode Island next, who has been one of the more kind of sneaky, surprising teams so far. I believe Rhode Island's still undefeated, and Archie Miller has those dudes rolling. So big game this Saturday, Providence at Rhode Island. So I think that was one that Kim English really needed.
He needed it. He got it. And I think you made a good point, CJ. Jerel, he needed it. Bahamas were a disaster, and they needed to kind of exercise some demons, and I think they did that in a pretty impressive way.
Yeah, they did, and like CJ spoke to it, the stars kind of aligned for them perfectly. They ended up getting the draw to get the home game in this one. BYU had to come to them. It's probably the first, I'll say, real home game they've had where, that place has been rocking. We all know that's a tough place to play traditionally. So they had all their fans in there. The students were back. Everybody packed it out. And obviously, one of the feel-good stories of the night is just, the return of Bryce Hopkins. And more importantly than just him getting back on the court, I watched a bit of that game as well. He looked good. He was moving pretty well. He looked spry, light on his feet, like he was ready to go, and like he was ready to be kind of thrown back into the fire and make an impact right away. And he had 16 points in 26 minutes with 5 rebounds and 4 assists. So that's a pretty good night of work. Where I'm sure he'll probably start stretching those minute counts out a little bit longer as they go here, and he continues to get his legs back underneath him. But a huge win for Kim English. Like I said, stars kind of align perfectly, and let's see if they can kind of carry some of this momentum going into the conference play with everything else. They're gonna have some big games, and they got a lot of work they got to make up too, just from kind of blowing some deals there in the non-conference too.
Dominant 19-point win tonight for Providence. It is time, my friends, to wrap it up. Tonight it is toast time for the toast of the evening. I will go first, and I'm going to give a toast to the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, Greg Sankey. I know he's going to bed very happy tonight. Tennessee getting a big win. Everybody but Kentucky. Ole Miss dominating on the road. His league flex. They have the best basketball league in America. This was his goal, and mission accomplished. So Greg Sankey, smile. You did it. Your league kicks ass. And a toast to you, Greg. CJ, what do you got?
I'll go. I got Michigan's Danny Wolf. We talked about him earlier. He balled out of his mind tonight. He was struggling early on with turnovers this season, but he is playing. Dusty May has him playing with a ton of confidence. And how about this line? 20 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 blocks, 3 steals. From Jared Burson, who's always got the great stats. First D1 player with at least 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 blocks, and 3 steals in a regulation game in 8 years. So you do something for the first time in 8 years. Cheers to you, my friend.
It's a pretty good one.
Mm-hmm. Jerel, what you got? Take us home.
I got a little bit of a left turn here, but I'm gonna do a shout out to one of my former players, a guy who actually played tonight but lost in a crazy game out at Northwestern. I'm going with Northwestern's own Nick Martinelli. They lost on a buzzer beater to Iowa. At Iowa, and it ended up being a really good game, especially that second half down there. It was a little bit nip and tuck, but Nick has been phenomenal for those guys. Northwestern has been beat up, had a ton of guys out, and he stepped up tremendously. And I'm not sure how great they're going to be going into the conference season, how many more primetime big games they're going to have left. So I'm using tonight to kind of give my boy a shout out. He's averaging 20.7 rebounds on the year, shooting over close to 50% from the field and 60% from 3. So if the season ended today, those would be All-American numbers. So shout out to my boy, Lucky Lefty, Nick Martinelli.
Nick Martinelli, a toast. Here, Nick. A toast indeed. All right, we are done. It's been a heck of a night. SEC, ACC has kept us busy as well as the Big 12 and the Big East. It is time to say goodbye, though. CJ Moore, Jerel McNeal, a pleasure to work with you guys tonight. As always, I am Chris Childers, and we thank you for listening and watching the Field of 68